Hey guys, I just want to let you know I absolutely love using Anchor. I have over 100 episodes with Anchor. And the great thing about it is I get to help a lot of different people. I've had over 1,000 listeners, and I've actually had people reach out to me telling me that it actually saved their life. So if you have anything that you want to talk about, if you have a passion, if you have a goal, definitely start podcasting using Anchor. It's probably the best thing I've done in my podcasting career.
Is this the man, the myth, and the legend?
Mario P. Fields, man. Richard, what's up, big brother?
Oh man, I'm so blessed to have you on today. I'm very grateful for you. Guys, this is going to be a great episode. It's going to be fun. Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Welcome to another episode of Success, Your Why Powers Your How. And this gentleman we will be talking today is a true American hero in my eyes. He's done great things in uniform, but I think even better things out of uniform. Mr. Fields, how are you doing today?
Hey, Richard, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And if you're listening to the show, make sure you go on Richard's platform, leave him a 5-star, maybe create a new category for 6 stars, and leave him a review. No, I'm blessed and honored to be on your show, Richard.
And, you know, one of our mutual friends, I talked to Stephen Colon. He just talks so highly about you. And your episode with him was truly, truly amazing.
No, thank you. Steven's an amazing man.
Yep, and I think me and him went through some of the same things during in the military, and then after struggling with substance abuse and stuff like that.
Right.
So, how was your weekend?
Hey, weekend was well. Hey, here's my definition or metric of a great weekend. I woke up and I was able to spend time with my wife and my son. So that's it. So if I can wake up and spend some quality time with them at the beginning, great day, great weekend.
So God has really blessed you then.
God is great, man.
I love it. So you've had I was reading your bio, and how many years did you stay in the military?
26.
Wow. I thought I stayed in a while. You got me beat. I was like, wow. So you went in as the young guy, and you became the old man, huh?
Yeah. I call it seasoned now, man. So I went in, young, and then came out seasoned.
Okay. So yeah, I came out well seasoned. I went in when I was 17, and I always made fun of the old guy until I became the old guy.
Yeah, no, you know how it is, man. You know, when the young Marines, average age is like 18, 19. They see a 40-something-year-old sergeant major. Yeah, you're the old guy.
Yep, you're the old guy. But so now, where are you originally from? Where were you? Where was home?
Yeah, born and raised in Pontiac, Michigan.
Pontiac, Michigan.
Yeah.
My boy's actually looking to go to Michigan for college.
Yeah. I mean, great state. You know, if you like cold weather, you're going to get that in Michigan. But no, that's where it all began.
So what was little Mario like?
Well, I'm the third out of 4 siblings. So if you remember Elvin and the Chipmunks, I'm Elvin.
Okay. What kind of little boy were you?
I was a good kid. I know I have ADHD. I've been officially diagnosed, but so just imagine, I'm an ADHD little kid, full of energy, want to talk to everybody, can't focus on anything, but doing great. Have a great attitude. And I was a mama's boy. A lot of people don't know that. I'm the only one out of my brothers and my sister that looks just like my mother and acts like her. I'm just not light skinned, and I don't have long hair, my friend. But other than that, pretty decent kid.
Okay. Were you since you had the ADD, were you still pulling good grades?
You know what I was? I just studied extra hard. Where it would take an average person, let's just say an hour to read a book. It would take me 6 hours to read it and retain it. I just put more effort because I just did not want to let my parents down. And at an early age, I believed in the power of your reputation. your reputation is more powerful than anything. So
Now, I grew up with, having ADD, but I realized that most ADD children are great at something else. They may not be good at school, but either they're good at um, art, doing artsy kind of things, or they're doing great at sports. Was there another outlet that you had?
yeah, for me, the ADHD, and you're right, ADHD to me brought a gift. I may not have been great at, reading books or remembering things, but my ability to create things without much effort was my strength. So just the ability to just be creative, that as you see played out in my business world as I retired.
Now, what kind of kid were you in college? I mean, high school.
Same. I mean, I was a homecoming king. I mean, I was 5'0" man, so I didn't have much of a choice. It was, you're 5 foot or 5'1" in high school. You kind of limited on your choices. So I wrestled.
Yeah.
I wrestled. I was, friendly with everybody, and then, like I said, ended up becoming a homecoming king my senior year.
Now, one thing, when I've done hundreds of interviews now, and I've noticed that some of the people that are the most successful actually wrestled in high school. And a lot of it has to do with the discipline it takes, especially when it comes to cutting weight.
Yeah. It's a tough sport. I mean, they're all tough, but wrestling, it's one-on-one, and you have to watch your nutrition. You have to watch your weight. You have to stay strong. You run, you lift weights. I mean, and it's a contact sport, but although it's a wrestling team on the mat, it's just you. Your teammates can't help you at all. Only thing they can do is cheer and go, "Don't look at the lights."
Yeah. All right. So I got a question to ask. I love this when I talk to people, and I love everybody's recruiting story.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a different recruiting story, and a lot of times they're funny and they're fun. So what was it like with you when you walked into the Marine Corps recruiter at 5'1"?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I had actually grew to a whopping 5'4".
Wow, you grew big growth spurt.
Yeah, from my freshman year to my senior year, man, I tell you, I had a real big one. But my recruiter, he was like, wow, because I was popular. And I walked in, was like, hey, you know what? I want to be a Marine. He was like, get on the pull-up bar. I've always done dead hangs. So I did like 20 dead hangs. And he's like, oh my God. And so he was excited that I came into the office to join the Marine Corps. But the way it happened was not that I always wanted to be a Marine. It's because my dang older brother, who's 17 months older than I am, he just out of nowhere goes, I'm joining the Navy. And then when he came home from boot camp, the dude was ripped. I mean, he was like mature. And I was like, man, I think I want to do that for a couple of years. I said, but I don't want to be just like him. And I'll join the Marine Corps. I think boot camp is similar. And that's really, really how I kicked off.
Wow. So tell me how, little kid coming, mama's boy, like you said, going into the Marine Corps, it had to be a kind of an eye-opening experience being around everybody. And, when we went through basic and all that, it wasn't the way it is today.
No.
Where, then back then they called everybody's mama every name in the book and could get away with it. So what was your first couple of weeks like in boot?
You know what scared me? The first thing that made me go, man, I think I screwed up was the heat. I grew up in Michigan. I am not used to South Carolina heat, man.
Yeah, I'm a South Carolina boy.
Good Lord. I had never felt heat like that at 2 a.m.
Yeah, it gets oppressive. It gets really hot.
I was like, is this hell? I was like, man, what the heck? So, and then the deal, man. As soon as I got down there, how tall are you? How tall are you? 5'4". No, you're not. You're 6'6". So I started getting messed with, man, from day one. And so it was a shock to me, and it was actually the first time I was depressed in my life because I think like a lot of recruits, I felt like I screwed up, man. So I had that first 7 days was rough for me.
And then you got into the groove?
I got into the groove and actually became an honor grad.
Wow.
Yeah, I graduated meritorious Lance Corporal.
So you were, it was kind of like the Lord just said, well, this is what you're blessed with. And it seems like you just ran with it.
It was, I still remember, Richard, that I think training day 7. And I just said, you know what? Men, they make decisions and they make the best out of those decisions. Boys, they look for alternatives all the time. Like they run away. I don't like this. I don't like how it feels. I'm uncomfortable. So let me find something else. And I remember that day I said, no, I'm a man. So I volunteered to do this. I chose to do it. Let's get it on. And I still remember that day. That drone sergeant came to me, and I was like Snowball from Full Metal Jacket, man, Private Snowball. I was like, sorry, I was trying to blast his head off.
Well, and I'm picturing that movie, and I can picture you.
Yeah, that was me. It wasn't me the first 7 days, but I had to flip the switch because I said, I'm a man, I'm not a boy. So let's do man things, right?
So now, what was it like? You did your first couple years, and then you had to sign that re-enlistment paper. What was that like? We had to decide, all right, I'm already in, but I'm not all in yet. They say if you're in for a nickel, you're in for a dollar. But what made you sign that second re-enlistment?
Believe it or not, my uncle was a Vietnam veteran. So I was going to get out. I was married. I got married at 19. I had 2 kids. And I told my wife, said, no, I want to spend time with the kids. So I said, I think it's time to get out. And she supported me. And I was at a family reunion, and my uncle, who's the other Marine in my immediate family, he did 30 years. I respect him. And my dad and my uncle were playing horseshoes, and I looked at him, my little chest stuck out, and I said, hey, Uncle Harold, I said, Marine Corps was great, learned a lot. I said, but go ahead and get out and pursue, other things. He throws the horseshoe, man. And he's like, you're stupid. And I was blown away. I was like, what? I thought he's going to be like, hey, great job, Mario. Hey, let me give you some contacts or some information. No, man. He was like, yeah, you're stupid. He said, see, eventually your kids are going to get big. You're going to get older. He said, medical issues may arise. He said, but at least if you do 20, you have a pension. He goes, when I joined in I think it was like 1950. I think he joined in 59. Yeah, he did. But he was like, when I joined in 1959, I knew I was doing 30. And plus, you're set for life if you just stay in there and just do what you're supposed to do. And so that was the moment that I put away my emotions and started using thought. And then I made the decision through a thoughtful process to stay in.
Now, that was my goal, was to hit 30, but I got hurt and they medically discharged me. So I wish I could hit 30.
Right.
But now you've been deployed everywhere. And I'm like I said, I'm so grateful for your service. I'm so grateful that we get to hang out today. I'm truly blessed. And we don't really tell war stories on here because this is more about helping people that are struggling in transition and stuff like that. But talk to me about February 17th, why it's such a special day for you.
Yeah, so I was a company first sergeant with Weapons Company, Battalion Landing Team 38, 26 Marine Expeditionary Unit. And so we actually got deployed into Afghanistan from the MEU. So it wasn't planned. We came in with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines in the Sangin. So I just kind of paint the picture. Very kinetic, unexpected deployment from the MEU. So this particular day, we were on a convoy leaving one of our patrol bases with our 81 millimeter mortar platoon. Yeah, and then we're in about a 6-Vic convoy. In my vehicle, I had an admin clerk from First Tanks with me, and I was just motivating him, inspiring him. Hey, you pick up first sergeant. This is how it's been. I mean, I'm a sergeant major select, so my first sergeant days are numbered. And I'm just talking to this kid, and I can see like he couldn't see. His back was turned towards the vehicles in the convoy, but I can see him as we were turning the corner in the desert. And the second vehicle, man, just gets blown up. It just disappears. Boom. And like, holy smokes. And of course, the deal in Afghanistan, man. If you hit one ID, it's a minefield. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's like a blank canvas. it's all desert. So the staff sergeant, who is the VC, vehicle commander, he goes, hey, we gotta, I need you two to be sweepers, and I need you guys, we're gonna creep up to the vehicle because of the corpsman in there got injured, the concussion. I think it fractured his legs, and he said we got to get him out. But he goes, but you guys got to, you and Nolasco back then, Corporal Nolasco, you guys got to go and clear lane and see if you can find any IDs to get him out. Roger that. So, the staff sergeant drives the vehicle real slow up to the where the vehicle got blown up. The corporal grabs the mine detector. We open the back hatch, and there's debris everywhere, man. Mark 19 round. I mean, you name it. There's debris everywhere on that desert floor. And I looked at Nolasco. I said, hey, that mine sweeper, it is no good. I mean, you're going to get metallic hits no matter where you go because there's so much debris on the deck, So I said, so we're just going to have to jump, create a rabbit trail, create a rabbit trail. And what that is, just step in each other's footprints, if you will. And hopefully we don't step on one. So we did that. And we both jumped, man. I'm like, hey, Semper Fi, we got to get him out. So we both jumped. Well, he jumps and then I jump, and then we both just we follow each other to make a trail to get to the vehicle. We get all the serialized gear out. We get the 3 Marines out. We get the corpsman out. We turn around and we follow the same rabbit trail back to our vehicle. You shut the hatch. We got everyone in. We drive maybe 20, 30 meters away from the blown up vehicle. And then the second bomb goes off right where we were stepping. So we figured that it was it was not a pressure plate. It wasn't built for troops, but maybe it was trying to get our tanks because we had tanks with us. So then EOD shows up, and we said, hey, we stepped in the area. We think it's clear. I mean, another one went off, but we think it's clear. But they were like, all right, the EOD assessed the area. As soon as EOD got in the area where we were stepping, their truck got blown up. So they got blown up. And
wow.
And so Nolasco looks at me and he goes, good God, First Sergeant, that's exactly where we were. I said, Nolasco, wasn't our time. It just wasn't our time. So almost 18 hours later, a wrecker shows up to pull the first vehicle that got blown up out of there, because EOD was able to get their vehicle out. They were able to get their vehicle out, but the other vehicle was destroyed. So the wrecker shows up about 18 hours later and is backing up to link up to the vehicle to pull it out, and then it got blown up. So there was 4 IEDs that detonated, and 3 detonated post myself and Corporal Nolasco walking where they blew up.
Well, that's when God was just looking out for you,
man. Yeah. So I said, hey, look, don't think about it. It wasn't our time. Because he's a young corporal, and I didn't want him to just start to replay what could have happened in his head, and then, kind of could have had the potential of messing him up, if you will. So say, hey, it wasn't our time, man. Let's move on. Tomorrow's another day, training day 1,
Now, they just don't give out Bronze Stars like they're nothing. Is that where you earned your Bronze Star?
Yeah, it was. It was that deployment. And the interesting thing is combat action ribbons are real tricky with IEDs. So people are like, oh, where's your combat action ribbon? Well, the way it was written, they denied it because they said, well, you didn't receive, any effects from the blast. Or they said, if you would have found the ID and marked it, then you'd have rated combat action ribbon. So combat action, I don't put much stock in them, because a lot of time there's a lot of Marines with those IEDs, man, that experience a lot more, I would say, stressful and mentally challenging situations than getting shot at. I mean, hell, I can go in the city and get shot at.
Yeah. Exactly. Like where I'm living, I live like 10 minutes from New York City, and I hear it every day,
Right. But Richard, those IEDs, you can't see them. You can't see them. You don't know where they are. You don't know if it's a wire pull command. You have no idea. At least if somebody's shooting at me, I can kind of generally figure out which direction they're shooting from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, how many? You said you did a total of 26 years.
I did.
So what was that decision? Decide, all right, because I'm sure that you and the wife had to sit at that kitchen table that day and decide, all right, honey, this is what we're going to be doing. So what was that conversation like? Because I realize that, whatever rank we are in the military, our wives are the generals, so, you may be a sergeant major, but you still got to take out the garbage,
Man, in my house, I'm a private.
Same thing here. So what was that conversation like? Because if we don't, I talk to a lot of people that start businesses or whatever,
Yeah.
and they wonder why they fail. It's a lot of the times because they never sat with the person that actually controls the purse strings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what was that conversation like when you were ready to go?
It was my wife. She said, Mario, you're talented. She goes, you, it's time for you to go and do other things. She goes, I'm not saying that the Marine Corps doesn't grow talented people, if you will, or develop personally, professionally develop them. She goes, but for you, I think you've maxed out your potential in the Marine Corps. And I think it's now time to go. And then the second thing, she was like, I miss you. She was like, I want to really spend quality time with you, and you're gone so much. So when she came to my office and said that, when I was in Camp Hansen as a 3rd Marine Expeditionary Brigade Sergeant Major, it was an easy decision. Richard, I'd never loved the Marine Corps. I love the Marines. The Marine Corps, it can't love me back, but the Marines are human beings, right? So the decision wasn't hard. It was an easy decision. It was, let's work together to plan a strategy to get out and to start the second half of our life.
I get that. Now, let me ask, because, when I talk to a lot of people, I've done hundreds of interviews with veterans.
Yeah.
And when a soldier goes off to a deployment, he never comes home the same husband that he was before he left.
Absolutely.
And people don't realize that, our family serves with us, and sometimes they have a harder job than we actually do, because we know what we have to do, and it's hard for our wives and kids because they serve with us.
Yeah.
Did you notice anything was off mentally at all with yourself after the deployments and all that?
Yeah. My last deployment, when I went to Afghanistan, that's when I started to develop, the PTSD. For me, my PTSD was, I thought about death about 20 times a day. And the reason why, after I talked to my psychologist, is because when I would deploy, and not just in combat, even when I was on Muse and I would fly on helicopters all over the place, anytime I did anything during my 26 years, and maybe later in my career, I would convince myself that I was dead. Therefore, I didn't have to think about my son, my daughter, my wife. That was not an issue. So I can focus on the Marine sailors or civilians in some cases that were with us. So doing that, it brought me peace and clarity deployed, but it had an effect. So when I came back after the last deployment, I was very irritable, which is not me. I drank a lot. Oh my God. I would, if a helicopter flew past the house, I would, hoorah, and cry and stuff. It was different. And then the adrenaline, I didn't want to be home, man. I wanted to go. I missed the IEDs. I missed the 810 gun runs. I missed the 81 millimeters and 60s, the mortars going off. And it was weird. So I was like, man, I love my wife. I love my children, but I don't want to be home, man. I want to go back. I miss that adrenaline. So yeah, the psychological impact started to catch up with me, but I was I was open about it. I wasn't, I just wasn't the type of person that said, I'm going to be isolated. I'm going to be, become an introvert and not talk about it. I was very open about it. So that's what really would start to impact me was that. And that's when, my wife actually gave me an ultimatum. She was like, Mario, you got to go. And I was a sergeant major, by the way. But she was like, you got to go get help or I'm probably going to leave you. Yep.
Now, did you get help while you were still in?
Sure did.
Because, you know, a lot of people, you know, that we talk to, you know, because me and you can, you know, guys, we can always just talk to each other.
Yeah.
You know, we always have each other. But a lot of times, a lot of guys will say, man, I'm afraid to go, you know, like a lot, you know, because we're guys. So you go to the dentist, you know, we're like, oh, did you go to see psychiatric help? And, you know, we joke about it. But then we also inside, we're like, man, I can't tell my guys that I'm going for help. There's that stigma.
Yeah. You know, Richard, I've always been a trailblazer. You know, I told you I was like Elvin and the Chipmunks. I didn't care. I didn't join the Marine Corps to serve other, you know, to develop this. What do people think about me? I just said, no, I'm going to say my prayers and I'm just going to do the best I can. And I'm going to be aware of my emotions. Right. And in pride, I'm going to make sure that I'm not prideful. And so when my wife was like, hey, you need to go get help, it's like, all right. And so when I went to the fourth floor in Okinawa, that's where the psychiatric team is at. And I walked in uniform as a sergeant major. Those junior Marines up there thought I was up there visiting another Marine. They were like, you know, they were all embarrassed and like, what's up, Devil Dog? How you guys doing? You know, they were like, I'm Sergeant Major. And then I went to the counter like, yes, who are you here to see, Sergeant Major? I said, the doctor. And they were like, okay. I was like, I don't have any pride, man. I need help. And how the hell can I be the sergeant major and tell Marines all day, go get help, go get help? And I can't even go get help because I don't have the courage to do so.
Wow.
So, yeah, man. So I went in, the psychologist, he was like, wow, you're in uniform. I said, what am I supposed to be in?
Yeah.
He goes, well, a lot of senior enlisted and officers, they come in civilian attire. I said, well, I'm not them. You know, I'm Mario P. Fields. You know, God put me on this earth to do one thing and I'm going to do it. And whatever that thing is, I'll figure it out.
I love that.
Yeah, man. And so, you know what else I used to do? I used to always pull out my card that had my psychiatric, my psychological, you know, appointments and follow-ups. And because, you know, as a psychologist that I would see. And I would in like a safety brief for formations. And I'm talking senior peoples, colonels, massive gunnies. I would pull out my card, go, hey, the junior Marines, they do a great job at getting help. Let's talk about us old people. Hey, if your sergeant major can be proud of getting help, I don't see why you can't, colonels and master gunnies.
That probably opened up,
it did,
you know, people's hearts, because a lot of the young privates will be like, man, if he can get help, you know, why can't I get help?
That's exactly how I led, man. I
love that. So now we're going to talk about you getting out. But first, I want to thank our sponsor. Because of everything that I've been through, I am holding my own mental health summit April 3rd. It's called Today I Decide. And it's about, we're going to have people coming in to talk about mental health, spiritual health, physical health. And it's hashtag Today I Decide, April 3rd. And it's going to be free for all veterans. And it's going to be virtual. So all people from all around the world can come, and I'm going to be talking. So I would love for you to maybe even just check us out and be a part of it, Sergeant Major.
No, thank you for the invite.
Yep. So now the people that are listening to this are either veterans, entrepreneurs, or both. So we call them vetrepreneurs.
Right.
So what was it like having, you know, of course, you know, we're in the military for 20, 25 years. You know, we get used to getting paid on the 1st and the 15th. We're used to having 3 hots and a cot. We're kind of coddled in a way. I mean, even though you're getting your retirement pay, why did you start your own business? And what was that decision like? What kind of business did you start?
So why I started my first business, I actually started a nonprofit called Still Serving Incorporated in 2018. It's a 501c3. And I initially started that one to be a pro bono speakers bureau. And then what a speakers bureau is like, say, college or a unit needs a keynote speaker. They can go to my bureau, the company, and we can connect them with the right speaker. Well, the lawyer said I couldn't, I really could not, I could do that. She's like, but there's a lot of rules to that because if a for-profit company want us to speak, you know, we got to pay. And being a pro bono bureau, that would mess up the industry. So I I modified the nonprofit to provide support to K through 12 students in the United States of America who are in Title I schools that are, communities where 40% of the students are considered low income. So that's what the nonprofit does. And then I built Global Inspirational Speakers as a for-profit speakers bureau over 2 years ago. And that's kind of what started the for-profit business. So that was not in the plans. It wasn't my vision. It was really the lawyer saying, you got to do something else.
Yeah, because a lot of people get mixed up between the 501(c)(3)s, and it could become a big headache when you start mixing money and all. Then you start having stuff that happened with like the Warner Project. And
right.
I don't want to get involved in that kind of drama.
Right. So that's really what started, the journey, the entrepreneur journey for me. And I would say to your listeners, the big key component, it's not really the funding streams, getting adjusted to the pay that's coming in. It's not a job if it's your purpose. If you enjoy doing what you do, it's not a job. You wake up every day and you go, man, this is fun. And for me, managing and leading the nonprofit and then managing and leading the Speakers Bureau, it is fun. But you have to deliberately surround yourself around like-minded people who are not afraid to tell you that logo sucks. People who are not afraid to tell you that your mission statement is horrible, but yet people who want to see you be more successful than themselves.
Yeah, I love that. Just not having a bunch of yes men around you, and then your friends look at you like, man, that logo really does suck.
Richard, for my nonprofit, it took me 90 days to get the board of directors to go, yeah, now we agree with your logo. It'd be 3-4 in the morning. I'm like, yeah, I got it. And I would email them and I'm all excited, only slept for 1 hour. And then 2 of them would come back and go, not bad. And then the other 3 would come back and be like, horrible.
Yeah. Just keep working at it.
Yeah.
So tell me about the first time you actually got up and had to speak in front of an audience, not in the military, as a retired civilian. What was that like?
It was Veterans Day for a company called Viasat. So that was the first time that I spoke as a veteran and not as an active duty sergeant major. And it was different. And the reason why it was different is because, one, it was Veterans Day and I was a veteran. And number 2, now I'm in the bleachers, right? I'm not on active duty. I'm not dealing with the obligations that come with being an active duty sergeant major. I'm a veteran. So I was able to really, really take a look at, one, the journey in the Marine Corps, what I learned, and then apply that going forward to the rest of the world as a veteran. And I enjoyed speaking in the open collared shirt and some slacks. It felt great.
And, me being a speaker also, it's kind of, I think a lot of guys that are veterans, they forget how to read a room and they start using all kinds of acronyms, and you just see the eyes start to glaze over everybody in the audience. And they're like, I have no idea what you just said.
Well, here's a trick. And, my daily job is running a speakers bureau. So this is my world in the industry. One of the things I recommended to speakers and folks who ask for advice is show up about an hour early. And what you do is you work the crowd. What I mean by work the crowd is you get to know your audience and you talk to them, and you can actually give your speech in conversation to see how they react.
I love that.
And it helps you listen to them, listen to their lingo, right? It might be a tech company or it might be whatever, but everyone has their own, organizational culture. But the more you interact with the audience, one, the more they feel connected to you. Because remember, the majority of your audience is, depending on where you speak, they have never served.
Yep.
So your job is to use art and science, right? So when you deliver the raw materials called words and you put them together, people can walk away from you going, man, I tell you what, I never served, but that was inspirational. So that's a tip I can leave your listeners is you got to show up an hour early and don't be shy. Hey, how are you? Where do you work at? Marketing? How's marketing?
I love that, because they say that, somebody may watch your presentation and never remember your name. But if you touch their heart, they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Right.
And I'm sure that, sometimes, you'll have somebody in the audience that you've spoken to, either their grandfather or their father were in the military. And I'm sure a lot of times they come up to you after your speech and they're like, wow, you really touched my heart.
They do. There's one thing in the speaking industry I always tell people is this. The one thing that you will get is an applause. Everybody will clap for you. Now, after that, the audience can vote on the quality of your speech.
I love that. Okay, so now I'm noticing because this is going to go out to up to over 700,000 veterans and entrepreneurs. I'm noticing a lot that, and I get a laugh every time I talk about this, but it's so true that every guy that gets out of the military now wants to open up a t-shirt company, a hat company, or coffee company. See, there it is. And 6 months later, they're $10,000 in debt and don't know what the hell just happened.
Yeah.
So when you first started your business, did you have a game plan and a written business plan?
Yeah. So not a written business plan, but a strategy. And that's one thing that I will say the Marine Corps really helped me get I won't say good, but effective at, and that's understanding the power of strategizing, and then understanding the difference between strategies and tactics. And so for me, I took the approach of let's build a strategy, right? What's the problem? What do I want? What am I trying to achieve? Let's build a strategy around this problem. And then now let's develop tactics, which is how are we going to solve this problem, And that's what I did. And I was very patient. So although there was a lot of ideas and I get, your emotions come in with anxiety. Oh, let's do this now. I was aware of those emotions, but I still leveraged my discipline to follow the strategy, knowing that the strategy should be scalable. It's going to change. Just like in combat, your mission changes first contact with the enemy. You have to be ready to be flexible, but yet sustainable. So that's the approach I took when I developed Still Serving Incorporated and Global Inspirational Speakers, including even the podcast, is what's the strategy? Let's take our time, develop the problem, the issue, the mission, right? The vision. And then let's develop tactics on how are we going to achieve this.
Okay, so now since you mentioned the podcast, which by the way I love,
Oh, thanks.
I listen to every episode I get a chance to. So now there's a million podcasts out there.
Yeah.
But most people don't realize that the average podcaster only puts out 6 episodes and then they're out of the game. They drop because people don't realize how hard it is to do a good podcast. So what are some of the things that you wish you would have known when you first started that you know now?
As far as being an entrepreneur or the podcast?
The podcast, because we have a lot of podcasters that listen to this.
So what I did was before I developed the podcast, when I had the vision to create a podcast and embed it within Global Inspirational Speakers, Global Inspirational Speakers is the sponsor for the podcast. I'm just the host and producer. But before I did that, I said, let me start interviewing people, right? Let me do some research before I even start to put this podcast together. And Stephen Colin was one of the guys I called. And I said, hey, I want to do a podcast. Here's my vision. But what are some pros and cons? And I shut up, man, and let him talk. So I did a lot of research, pulled a lot of empirical data. And I said, okay, I'm going to take about 6 months to develop this podcast. And I'm going to work with teammates to figure out what podcast can I develop that's different than the other hundreds of thousands? And that's what I did. So what I did was I didn't jump in and go, man, I wish I would have. I said, no, I want to avoid that. So let's not do that. Let's start talking to people first and interviewing, before we start building it.
And I think that's great that, you've talked, because a lot of guys or a lot of people will just go and start a business and don't really do any, market research.
No.
Or they do so much market research that they call paralysis of analysis, and they just don't do it. They're like, well, there's too many podcasts. I'm not going to get involved.
Right.
So what makes your podcast different than, say, Joe Schmoes from Idaho?
Yeah. So our podcast is to talk about personal, professional challenges while living, with the end state that the listeners will gain a better understanding of how feelings, emotions, and thoughts can influence the outcome. And as human beings, we all have feelings and emotions, but the thought process, it takes effort. And if you make I believe if you make emotional decisions, you limit the outcome while living. But if you put effort into the thought process, then the outcomes become unlimited, depending on what, the situation you're facing, the personal, professional challenge you're facing. This podcast can interview anyone. So it's not one of those where it's kind of a business podcast or whatever. It's a podcast that I can bring on anyone and go, talk to me about when you got diagnosed with cancer, or talk to me about when your dad died. And let's talk about what were your emotions, and then how did you think through that to beat depression? Yeah.
I love that, because I've interviewed a lot of people, and especially dealing with trauma, because most people don't realize when an adult acts out, it's usually because of trauma that happened between the ages of 3 and 13.
Right.
And then you add alcohol, then you add war to it all, and it becomes like the perfect storm.
Right.
And unfortunately, when a lot of guys and gals get out, we kind of lose our mission, and we lose our camaraderie. That's what I missed most about the military.
Right.
Was, like there would be times, my wife doesn't understand where, we would just be the four of us just sitting out in the middle of the desert on top of the tank at 3 a.m. bullshit and eating MREs. But it was like family, And then when you get out, it's hard to find your mission. So was you starting your businesses, was that kind of resetting your mission?
Yeah, so it was, and it was, for me, I look at every day as a gift, every day is a gift to be alive, because you don't know what's going to happen the next second. And so for me, it was, what can I do to make life better for the next generation? And that's what drives me is I need to do things not for Mario P. Fields, right? Not for me, but for the next generation. And it's in the preamble of our Constitution of the United States. Posterity. Do things for the next generation. So that is what allowed me to continue to feel purposeful and fulfilled, is doing things that I know that are impacting people today, and setting conditions for the next generation to have a better, life, if you will.
All right, so now I have a question to ask. Now, I don't know if it's just a feeling that I have, but I have a feeling that you're a man of faith.
Oh, you're 100% correct, my friend.
Okay, because I'm a man of faith. I believe in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So, what role has faith played? And I'm sure when you think back to February 17th, that the man upstairs was looking out for you. And it's kind of, sometimes we look back and think, man, I shouldn't have made it. He really took care of us. So what role has faith played in your career and now outside of the military?
When you read the bio and you look at the companies, that is faith. Richard, I did not want to be an entrepreneur. That was not my dream. My my plan was 12 months from retiring to go to Tampa, Florida, to do JROTC because I love being in high schools and to do some consulting on the side. That was it. That was the plan. That's what I wanted to do. But the good Lord said, you have your plans and I have my plans. So the nonprofit and in our for-profit, that was not my plan, nor was it my dream. And a lot of people always go, oh, you've always been a great speaker, so we knew you would do something like that. I'm like, no, your assumption is false. Like, I actually enjoy teaching students in school and then just doing some small consulting on the side. But when God, said, hey, through prayer, I need you to do this. I was like, I've never a speaker's bureau. They're like, really, God? He's like, yeah. And here we are. So I prayed on it. When I got a vision, I just looked at my wife, said, babe, God gave me a vision. I need to be obedient and have faith that it's going to work out. So yeah, that's on the faith side, and me believing in God. When you look at, again, the companies, that's just me following the vision through prayer that God put in my head.
And sometimes, like I said, wherever this conversation goes, I love it. I'm having a great time, and I'm so grateful that we're talking. Like every time before I do an episode, I always say, Lord, please give me the words that can help somebody that's listening. And it's amazing how in the last 6 months to a year, God has been putting men in my life.
Amen.
That are, you become like-minded, and it's weird how like the podcast is like really taking off, but it's great when you can talk to a man like General Petraeus,
right,
and about your faith. It's amazing what God will do. What do they say, that he'll do things that no man can do for you?
That is true, my friend. And so I would never take credit for the success of these organizations, including the podcast. That is just Mario P. Fields being obedient to God's vision and purpose for me.
So what mistakes do you see guys that are going into business? What kind of mistakes do you see that veterans that are getting into business and then all of a sudden they're bankrupt, or they just don't, like they're selling T-shirts, but they forget that they're going up against Grunt Style and stuff, those big companies. So what can they do before they even start out on their entrepreneurial mission?
Great question. I would say the first thing is you got to build, you have to build teammates around you to help your vision become a reality. I believe you have to spend a lot of time deliberately building a team around you before you even begin. And that's what I did. This person is great in business. This person is great in nonprofit finances. You have to go out and go, hey, can you be my advisor? Can you help me? And then get rid of not get rid of your emotions, be aware of your pride and your emotions, and then allow the team to help you develop the business.
So from what I'm hearing is you're very big on mentorship.
Yeah. I mean, everything's teamwork, right? I mean, people in the military, we don't do anything in a vacuum. So so for me, when I see veterans who kind of start businesses and fail, I'm like, well, the first question I ask them is, well, show me your team. Where's your team? Who's on your team? Can you trust them? Have you vetted them? And a lot of times when I go, who's on your team? They'll say like 2 people or 3 people. It's my brother, my dad, or someone else. And I'm like, well, what are their credentials? We don't win any, you don't accomplish anything, I believe, without a team. You can, but you're doing it by yourself, and it's a lot harder. And the potential of failing, I believe, significantly increases when you don't have a team around you.
Okay, now talking about mentorship. Now, as we grow, of course, our mentors grow with us, or we find other bigger mentors. I would say,
right.
Big mentors is Ed Milet, which is He's one of my big mentors. So, who are some of your mentors? Some people that you look up to, and when you need, because I tell everybody, even the greats need coaches, and even Tom Brady, 6 Super Bowl rings, he wants to be coached. So if he can be coachable, and if Michael Jordan was coachable, who says that we shouldn't be coachable? So who are some of your people that you actually are your mentors?
All the listeners have to do is in the search engine, put in Still Serving Inc. It'll come up and click on our team. And then go to Global Inspirational Speakers. You can put that in the search engine. It'll pop up and click on our team. All those people on both of those websites, right, minus me, those are my mentors.
I love that. Now, you're kind of person, we all know that, Jesus in the Bible, he was meek, and he even said it. They even said he was meek, and meekness is just power under control.
Yeah.
So tell me about, because me and you seem to be on the same path where we'd rather talk about everybody else than talk about ourselves. And I think that in today's age, being transparent and being humble, I think is a game changer. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree. And I'll talk about myself. I always thought I was a humble person, but once I started building the companies, I had, when people started telling me that that's not good, or you need to change this, or here's what I recommend you do, and this is confusing. When you start receiving that feedback, I had to realize that I had to realize that just because I believe something is great doesn't mean it's great. And just because I did 26 years in the Marine Corps has nothing to do with building these companies. I had to redefine what is humility, and then ask myself the tough question, Mario, are you really humble? And the answer was no. The answer was, I thought I was humble. I believed I was a humble person, but in reality, I was not. And so I had to put effort to change the way I thought and in how I process my emotions. And that really helped me. And the feedback I got from a couple of my board members, who are a couple of them, are Marine veterans, retirees, shall I say. They said, one thing, Mario, that we notice about you that we really respect is the way you are. We do not have any reservation of telling you and giving you criticism and advice. Whereas some people, they're hesitant. They don't know how they're going to take it.
I love. Okay, now normally I only ask 2 questions before we log off, but because it's you, I'm going to ask 3 questions.
Go for it.
First question is, how can we support your missions? Where can we go to find you, and what can we do to help support what you're doing?
No, yeah. So you can find me at globalinspirationalspeakers.com, www.globalinspirationalspeakers.com. If you put it in the search engine, it'll come up. You can find Still Serving Incorporated, same thing, in the search engine. That's Still Serving Incorporated. The podcast is called Unarmored Talk. You have to remove your armor to come into the podcast to talk. And you can also find that by putting that in the search engine or going to www.unarmoredtalk.com. And then last but not least, my YouTube channel. All you have to do is just put in search engine Mario P. Fields YouTube. And that will come up, and you can subscribe, follow me there. And then how to help us is, I just believe in sharing information. Subscribe, share the post for the podcast. Just get the word out about the organizations and what we're doing. And I believe the power of sharing information is invaluable, and that's how your listeners, Richard, and your listeners can help me.
It's funny, when you have podcast guests on and they don't share their own episode, and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
A little confusing.
Okay. So now, second question. If I ask you, if I say, Mario, I want you to do something in the next 7 days, you're probably never going to get to it. But if I said, Mario, I want you to take an actionable step in the next 24 hours, you'll probably take that step. So if you know somebody that's struggling in business right now, what can they do in the next 24 hours to start to right the ship?
I would say within the next 24 hours, they can go on LinkedIn. I would say they can go on LinkedIn, or they can ask a friend or someone that they're comfortable with to find someone that they don't know, that's not in their circle, that's willing to advise them pro bono.
Wow, I love that. And the last question, now that we've gotten to know each other and I consider you a brother in Christ,
Hey, likewise.
this is going to be for people that are struggling with their faith. You know, they say that if you don't feel close to God, guess what? You're the one that moved. So if somebody is struggling with their faith, what can they do in the next couple minutes just to start getting right with the man upstairs?
Yeah, Richard, my mom used to always say, Mario, the human being, we all have choices, right? We have the power or freedom of choice. She goes, so I know that as you get older, you can believe whatever you want. She goes, I believe in God. She goes, but I'm gonna tell you, son, that if you don't fill your soul with something will fill in. And I never forget that. And it stuck with me when I was putting a fence up in my house. Then I dug the post, but I got lazy, right? So instead of doing what I was supposed to do, I waited 2 days, and then it rained, and there was all kind of crap in the post holes. And that's when it hit me that, hey, we all have souls, and you got to fill it with something. If you don't, it will be filled, and it may be filled with things you don't want. So my advice to folks is, you got to ground your soul. You got to have faith and believe, and for me, in God, and something that's positive that can get you through challenges while living. But if you don't put effort into your faith, something will fill your soul. And that's, in my eyes, that's when all the other stuff just gets amplified. And what I mean by stuff is depression, anxiety, your PTSD. Your soul is just searching to be grounded, and it's not grounded. So it's gonna go a different direction. You may not want that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mario. I still feel bad calling you Mario because I know you're Sergeant Major, and I have that respect. But
no, I'm honored when you call me Mario. Sergeant Major is great, but that's that was in the journey of being a Marine. But now I'm Mario.
Well, I'm grateful for your friendship, and I hope we can continue our friendship. And I just want to say thank you. And this episode will go out in the next couple of weeks. It'll go out on all my platforms. And I just want to say I'm humbled and grateful for your friendship.
Hey, likewise, Richard. Hey, God bless you, man. And again, thank you for having me on your show.
You too. God bless you and the family.
Take care.